Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have a special guest here. This is Conversations with Rob. Please like, subscribe, and share our videos. We have people from all over the world and all different regiments of work that come on the show and tell their story. I have a special guest on today who's an amazing man, a family man, and who grew up in Fox Point, Rhode Island. His name is John Murphy. Mr. Murphy's been in banking, he's been in philanthropy. He's also been on the Providence City Council, and we're going to talk about politics, real estate, philanthropy, and also banking. So, Mr. Murphy, I just want to say it's a pleasure having you on, and I've heard so much about you through my dad, and he's told me a lot of stories, so I appreciate you having me on. Having you on right now.
I'm honored to be here.
All right, so Mr. Murphy, let's talk about this. Growing up in Fox Point, talk about that for the viewers that aren't from Providence or aren't from Rhode Island. You grew up in humble beginnings. How was that?
Well, it was a great lesson in life. I grew up in the Providence Fox Point Boys Club. That I was a member. I wasn't a member because I was too young, but I started going there with my brother at age 5. And I think it made me very well aware that people of different backgrounds and color. And I think there was never any discrimination. We were all in the gym together. We were all in the pool together. We never knew anything about racial.
Right.
We never talked. There was no race talked about. And there was a companionship and lifelong friendships that I met. And then when I ran for office, Cape Verdean people were very helpful to me. Then it all goes back to being a member of the Boys Club, where I met in early age Cape Verdean males at that time, and then I met them later on in life at public high school, and we kept to be friends, and we're lifelong friends, and they really helped me out politically, and I never forget that. And I've enjoyed the company of that community and as personal friends, like brothers to me. And so that was what I got out of Fox Point. That's one thing I got out of Fox Point. But also I really didn't know I was an American until I was like 22 in the Army in Japan on R&R, on furlough, on leave, on vacation. And I heard 2 Japanese people speaking English very fluently, and I went over and introduced myself, and I said, gee, you speak English so very well. They said, we're Americans. And then I questioned them, and I looked at them, the expression I had on my face, and they reacted by, what do we have to have, blue eyes and blonde hair to be an American? So, wow. When you grow up, I went to Catholic primary school, grade school, K through 9, and majority of my class were first generation, like me, parents of Irish immigrants. So it was a Catholic school, and I kind of thought, we always said we were Irish, not American. We always said we were Irish. Right. Nothing to do with American at all, until later on in life that you're American first and then you're Irish. So that also was something that I learned in Fox Point. But I worked in the markets, helped delivering orders. I worked as a newspaper, delivering newspapers. I was active in sports. I was active in everything about the community. And then around election time, I'd go to the Democratic Club. My mother worked for the city of Providence, and it was a political job. At that time, there was no civil service. If you knew the councilmen and they were in power, they got you a job. Her job was cleaning the mayor's office in the city of Providence every night, and the executive branch, maybe the finance department, the whole second floor. So, I gained some interest in government by my mother going there every day. And then I went over to the Democratic Club as maybe 9 years old, along with some of my friends, Bobby Clarkin and the Caseys, Jack Casey. And then we helped out, we passed out stuff. That was Kenny Souza. Maybe 4 or 5 of us used to go out, and they counted on us to make mail drops, deliver flyers in the community. So And then, you know, you hear this people speaking, you go to their rallies, you go to their coffee hours, and it kind of grabs you. And when we were kids, we all said, you know, someday we're gonna do this. We're gonna be the councilman, the rep, or the senator.
Right.
And when the opportunities came, we did it. And I was doing well and happy in New Jersey. I was about 25 years old, and I get a call 4 o'clock in the morning from Bobby Clark, and he said they got beat. That meant the 2 incumbent city councilmen. That's what he was referring to me. So he said, "When you coming back?" I said, "I can't come back until I got obligations. I got like a contract, an unwritten contract that I would stay here 2 years. Maybe I can fulfill some of it in Providence, but I just can't pick up and leave." So it really started right after the 1964 election that I got interested in politics. Then I knew I was coming back to Fox Point and run for office.
So let me go back into starting in Fox Point. It seems like, and this kind of is geared to what you grew up with, to what it is now. You look at neighborhoods, like you said, growing up, you knew everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody cared about each other. Everybody kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
It took a village to bring me up, because I was very active, and people kept me in line that knew my mother. You know, they all they had to say is, you know, "I'll tell your brother or your mother." And, you know, immediately I got in line.
Right, but we don't see that anymore, Mr. Murphy, anymore in neighborhoods. Like
There aren't any neighborhoods. Like, I consider myself. They say, "Where you from?" I say Fox Point. I've been living 42 years in East Greenwich, but I'm never from East Greenwich. I'm from Fox Point. That's
right.
where my heart is.
Right,
That's where I started.
It's sad because, like I said, I talk about a young guy, 30 years old now. You know, I was in an Italian neighborhood, and everybody, like you said, sort of what you came through. Everybody took care of each other. You grew tomatoes, you gave it to your family, the people across the street. You don't see that anymore. And I feel like, and this is kind of a different topic, but I do want to get more involved in you in politics and stuff. Do you think that kind of gears toward how, like, the family, the American family in parts is going downhill in some areas, that there's not that kind of culture that you grew up in, that I grew up in, that kids are not learning? You see in the schools, there's all these kids bringing in guns, they're from broken homes, and it's really sad to see. Do you feel like that's the issue?
Yeah, family life has changed. You know, you had. I remember when I was instrumental. I introduced it into the city council for the community center on Gano, on Ives and Wickeden, and I went to Congressman St. Germain, and the board of directors of the Boys Club at that time, they were funded by the United Way mostly, but they just didn't think we had a chance. So we went and asked the city if we could have a police substation. They said yes. Providence Public Library said they're coming. St. Maria's Home, which was a home for single women that were unwed, that lived in the community on Governor Street. And then it turned into a housing for the elderly and nursing home. So there was a lot of elderly people there. So we went to Providence Health Centers and said, "Will you share some space?" They said yes. So we had, and then the Boys Club was going to be, their facility was condemned for planning and urban development. And, you know, it was poorly planned. I can say that. I wasn't a member. I didn't do the planning, but I inherited it. I inherited the plans. So I had to work around them, did the best I could in changing them. But it wasn't fairly done. There was a generation of people, they wanted to call themselves Green Village. And they lived on they lived on the west side of Brook Street, and it was the home of Senator Green. So they called it Green Village, and they were buying older homes that one time were 3-family houses, where 3 immigrant families of first generation were living, and they had, you know, 5 or 6 kids. You know, you had sisters and brothers, almost sisters in 1 bedroom, maybe 3 bedrooms in it, 3 beds in 1 room, and same with the boys. So, and mother and father. So they were crowded facilities, but you know, the values, work ethic was there, participation in church we went to church. You had to go to church at my house, so you wouldn't eat. I mean, you wouldn't sleep either. You'd be finding a new home. So that was made the families stronger. Like for instance, when I was 14 years old, Father Bean came down to the house and said, "We have a camp. The diocese has a camp, and I want you to come there to work because I'll get you off the streets and I'll give your mother a little piece that you're down there and you're not going to get in trouble." I had. That was a very important part of my life. I was down in Narragansett. I went to the beach every day. I worked as a junior counselor. I worked in the kitchen the next year. So it showed me a different. I'm grateful that I went there at that time in my life. It gave me a few dollars in my pocket, but it kept me in a regimented focus. There was no time to. Idle time is the working of the devil, my mother used to say. So you couldn't, I wasn't idle. I was working all the time. And busy and organized in either sports or community activities or school activities. And my mother knew it took 15 minutes for me to get home from the Boys Club. That was my freedom. Right. 15 minutes to get home. This didn't want to see us in trouble.
Right. No, I agree. It's a mix of, with the problems I think that's going on in America right now, me personally, it's a mix of family life, education. I went to LaSalle Academy. I went to CJCR, which has been torn down, but it was right on behind Garden City. Mm-hmm. And it was a good Catholic upbringing, as you said, with LaSalle too. And with the values of the Catholic upbringing and also the values of the family, I think that really helped out. But I want to get into politics. Mm-hmm. So I know you say your family immigrated from Ireland over here. Yeah. Did they have a big presence in your life to get you into politics, or did you want to just get into politics? How did you get in?
I wanted to do it. They were not that they weren't anti. They weren't against it, but right. They didn't. Nobody's gave me a path to go on or a playbook or anything like that from them. No. Well, my cousins and my mother's, and they were Democrats, and my mother got a job from the Democratic organization at that time, called it Machine, if you want. So we felt obligated, and we became, part of the organization. They could count on us for help, and we felt obligated to help, and the incumbents or the Democratic Party. So it was part of our life. We felt obligated, and I'm a liberal Democrat to this day. I'm going to continue. I'm going to die a liberal Democrat. I'm not going to change.
So let's talk about that. So you were a councilman. You kind of touched on that a little bit in the interview earlier. What made you run as a councilman? I know you said your friend kind of called you up from New Jersey.
Yeah, because we were always thinking of it, and there was no opportunities. And then we saw the incumbents got beat, and they weren't doing the job. Right. So they wanted new blood. I won, but being a Democrat helped me. I couldn't win as an independent. So being a Democrat in that neighborhood, although it was changing, as they say, part of the ward was changing with a new breed, and they were very closely, politically associated with John Chafee, who was a more moderate Republican. Right. He had become governor in '62, and then you had Rick Worrell. Bob Schock was his administrative assistant. He moved into the area, and then you had Woodbridge. Woody Woodbridge, he was president, and you had Bud Gifford. They were hospital trust banks. They were all long history. Bayard Ewing was in the ward. So there was some prominent Republicans always in the district, because it was gerrymandered back in 1940 when they reapportioned the city. So you had they gerrymandered it so that you could keep a percentage of Republicans. They weren't the majority, but it was like 60-40. So then they overcame. They got independents to vote for them, and it was changing. So when I ran, it was I got elected. But when I come back from New York, I lived in a district that was in the first ward, but it was more independent. It was Wayland Square. I lived on 251 Waterman Street, and a lot of the people there were transit people. They worked for Brown, they worked in the downtown in the insurance companies or the banks, or they were educators, or they were even graduate students. So they were independents, tending to lead Democratic votes. But they were independents, and so you had a campaign, you had to get them, and the fact that I lived in that neighborhood gave me an upper hand. These were all new people, I never met them. Now, in Fox Point, I only won one district that year. I only won one district. So the ward lines went all the way up to North Main Street and Olney Street, Pratt Street, this side of Benefit Street, and there was some minorities still there, and there was not as many Cape Verdeans lived up there, but there were minorities up there, African Americans, and a lot of them were Republicans, and plus the RISD was up there, Round School of Design. Those professors tended to be, independent to Republican. They had a choice in the ward. They had to be with John Chafee, who was a moderate and then Republican, and he appealed to a lot of independents. So, and then he supported candidates. He supported Rick Worrell, Joe Souza, and Fred Lippitt was his cousin. He supported him. He was up. They were up on the east side, the west side of the ward, but they were in the ward. Fred Lippitt lived in the first ward. He was on Prospect Street. That wasn't your typical Democratic voter living on Prospect Street. It wasn't. There was maybe one Democrat that I knew of on the street, Mike Gamino, who was president of Columbus National Bank. There weren't any Democrats up there. I mean, it was just old line, WASP money people. I ring the bell, and the lady would come to the door. The maid would say, "I know who you are. I'm going to vote for you." But people in this house aren't going to vote for you. So that happened to me about 3 times. Wow. Then the lady picks up my brochure and says, "Oh, an Irishman." I said, "No, I'm an American."
So let me ask you this, Mr. Murphy. So you were in the first ward. We look at, and just to kind of go back in time to the viewers, we look at the 1960 election with Kennedy and Nixon, and we talk about Chicago. We could go into that story at a later date. But I was told you were a guy in the first ward that could get out the vote, and you, like Mayor Daley did for Kennedy in '60.
Yeah.
Is that true? And how was it to get out the vote in when you were running, and also for the people that were running in Providence, because it's the capital city?
Yeah. Well, we had a bingo system, we called it.
Mm-hmm.
So on election day, primary day, and then election day, we would we'd go to a street, and we'd look at every voter on the street. And we started, like, if it was number 2, he would be Sheldon Street. If it was number 2, we would identify the house with a number and a name, and we'd have them on 3x5 cards, and then we'd put the voting list all 6,000 or 7,000 voters were on a wall.
So sorry to interrupt you. How many people did you have working with you to get out this vote?
Oh, gee, I had 100 or more.
Wow. Okay.
100 or more. Some part-time, but we had a good young organization. They were like school teachers. Some worked on the waterfront. There was a lot of people worked on the waterfront then. It was the lumber yards were going, and then the shipping and stuff. The young people from the waterfront, teachers. Police and fire didn't get involved. They couldn't get involved, police anyway, but city workers. There was we had an incinerator in Providence. Nobody wanted to work there because of the smells and stuff. So it was run by immigrants, mostly Portuguese immigrants, and they liked to work because it was overtime and it was hot. They didn't mind the heat, and they didn't mind the smell, and they had great benefits and a great pay. So, I mean, they got overtime, and it was a good unionized job. So and all the benefits. So they really wanted those jobs. And, as soon as they became a citizen, they would apply. And so but their families all came out and voted. They felt obligated too. Then we had the garbage collection. That was heavily run by people from my ward. Why they liked it was when you went to work and you finished your work, you were all through, and you had it started about 4 o'clock in the morning, and some of them, mostly all of them, had part-time jobs because they would rush through their route, no coffee breaks, no lunch hours, just get that garbage picked up early in the morning. Then they would paint houses. They'd work as mechanics. They did work as always had 2 jobs. So it was people raising a family and maybe without a college degree and not maybe even not even a high school degree. They would like those jobs because they would fit something else into there, and so they have a very decent income when they combine the 2 jobs. So they like that, and they like the freedom. In winter time, it was kind of rough, but they'd go to each house twice a week in Providence, got their garbage picked up, and they went in the yards, in the house, in the yards, and picked it up. It wasn't even bring it to the front of the house.
Yeah.
No, they went right in your yard and picked up that garbage, and most of them finished, I'd say, by 9 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Probably they were all done.
Yeah.
So then they would do some other work. But that was, we had a lot of those people in the working there in the incinerator, and then we had a lot working for the garbage. Not so many in the water department. That was kind of a physical a job. You know, you had to be pretty good shape. You did a lot of digging and jackhammers and stuff like that. But the garbage was a big thing, and the incinerator was a big thing, and the cans. You had 2 different collections, one for garbage, and then once a week you could put out cans. To give you a specific day,
Right.
and they'd come by, all the plastic and all that was in cans, like cans of soup and everything metal would be put in that. And one fellow did it. He was a professional fighter, Harold Gomes, and he did it to stay in shape. And he would get those cans up over and empty them into the truck.
Wow.
And he was a world champion boxer, so he liked it. It forced him to stay in shape.
Right, of course, yeah, lifted all that, yeah.
Yeah, but then we had a few, not a lot. I don't think we control that, the ward, but we had a lot of guys that liked that job too. And then again, when you finished, you went home.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this now. I mean, you look at the campaigns in the recently, and this is more so national, but the Obama campaign about how they targeted voters. Do people still use kind of your techniques? I mean, I know Providence has changed and different groups have moved into different areas in Providence. Do they still use your techniques as far as?
I think they do. If they don't, they're foolish, because you have to identify your vote. We knew in the afternoon that, as you went this independent to Republican district, like Brook Street, we voted at the fire station on Brook and Williams, and the working class people were east, and the professionals were west. Now, and the professionals voted in the morning. My people, our Democrats, working class, worked at Dave Oaks, they worked at the waterfront. They came, and they're usually husband and wife. They'd start filling into that polling place after 5 o'clock.
Right.
And everybody there was Democrat.
Yeah.
In the morning, but everybody was there was Republican or they're independent. I didn't know them, or they just knew the neighborhood. But that was Brook Street, where Fox Point School had like 1,000 votes, and those people were they were Democrats. Franklin Delano Roosevelt Democrats, I call them. They went through the Depression. They just wouldn't vote Republican. And they blamed it on Hoover, and that's it. They were loyalists. I mean, and sometimes you used to have that 2 levers. If you wanted to vote straight Democratic on the city level, you could vote for mayor and the 2 councilmen, and then on the other level, it started with the president, the governor, congressman, all the way down to the state rep, state senator, state rep. So, a lot of those people wanted to vote straight Democrat. Mm-hmm. And some of them being first-time voters, they never been in the booth before. They never, some of them were new to the English language. They knew enough English to get a citizenship, and but they wouldn't want to be, they want to be comfortable, so they take a relative with them to vote. So you could have at least the Democrats. We'd have 6 people in the family in line to go. Elderly, even the grandparents. Sometimes houses, like maybe even in the Breeden house, had grandparents and then sons and daughters and then grandkids, and they're all in one family. They all come out and vote.
So let's talk about and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think this is correct. You were in power when Mayor Dawley was in there and Mayor Cianci?
Yeah, I was in, Dawley got elected in '64. I was out of the state, and I didn't participate in that election.
Okay.
And then '64 was the year that there was an upset. 2 Republicans got in the first ward, Fox Point. It was '64. Chafee got elected in '62. He had a big influence. Then he got his staff people wanted to move into Fox Point. They saw that these were older houses and what you could do to them, because Benefit Street was starting to be rehabilitated up from North Main all the way down. And they said, wow, you can get one of these old houses and you can, they were educated on the architecture, how you get the 6/6 windows, the clapboard siding, and get the original floors. And these houses had fireplaces, and it was a fad, and it was an opportunity that they took advantage of. They bought these houses and moved into the neighborhood. That's why it's gentrified today, and that's why the Portuguese, Irish, Cape Verdeans they're no longer the controlling interest, and there's still a Portuguese church, and there's still a Catholic church, which used to be the Irish church and the Portuguese church. But they're successful, particularly Portuguese church, because it's Providence based now. Portuguese people couldn't find a house in Fox Point. They went out to Washington Park, also referred to as the shipyard. They were building ships in that. For the Second World War, Kaiser Shipyard. So they say, I live now, they couldn't find a house, 3-family house in Fox Point to satisfy their whole family needs, so they went out there, Washington Park, and that neighborhood now is predominantly Portuguese, and it's on another side of the city, but they keep their parish as Holy Rosary.
Right.
They want to get baptized there. They want to get confirmed there in that church, and it's the Portuguese church for the city of Providence, basically, and some of East Providence. So it's a thriving parish, although the majority don't live in Fox Point anymore. But they move to either East Providence or Washington Park.
Right. So let's just talk about the current state of Rhode Island politics. We've seen a lot of things go on in the past couple of years. We saw the re-election of Gina Raimondo, the taxes, the road projects. There's road projects everywhere in Rhode Island. The poor Sox deal went sour. What is your take on the state of Rhode Island politics?
I like Gina Raimondo. I wish she could stay another term. She's termed out. I think she was a breath of fresh air. She offended the teachers, no question about it. She made the pension fund solvent. They're going to be like the city of Central Falls if they didn't make these tough decisions. It's like the schools in Providence today. I talked to the mayor. I supported this current mayor, Alorza. He called me. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "You can't do it alone. You need the state help. You can't. And you better get a blue ribbon citizens organization that have credibility and the people trust them. Like I said, President Brown, Providence Equity, the Diocese of Providence, the Episcopal Diocese of Providence. Get someone from the Jewish community and public spirited people that are independents, not Republican or Democrat. You got to pick out 10 people in the community that are non-political, I say, and they have faith. People have faith and trust in them, because you can't have it political. The school is terrible. I'll give you an example. Here's Hasbro. Now, Hasbro has 500 people. They're a Pawtucket-dominated corporation, domicile, and now they have, majority of their people live in Massachusetts. Why? Because of the schools.
Yeah.
They're buying houses in Massachusetts, these Hasbro people, and they're not coming to Rhode Island to live. That's a shame. That's hurts. That's terrible. It's going to eventually happen. You know, I see one department, and I'm not going to be picking on firemen, but they have St. Patrick's Day as a holiday, a paid holiday. And when they work that day, they get double time because go to Rhodes on St. Patrick's Day, St. Michael's, which is the port church in Southside Providence that was saved by the diocese and efforts led by Frank Darrigan, who was a former candidate for mayor, and then he became a Superior Court judge. But his influence saved, I think, he got me involved. It saved the parish. It was Frank Darrigan's influence that saved that parish, and he's still a member there. And he still drives up from Jamestown mostly every Sunday and participates in that parish in all the functions and fundraisers. And so that is get off on the track on this.
Oh, no, I was just saying about the state of Rhode Island politics.
Oh, yeah, state of Rhode Island politics. Yeah, I like Gina. I don't see it. I like the new Attorney General. He didn't even have an opponent. He was the former federal U.S. Attorney, Nerona. I think he's a strong candidate. I met him once, but I never. But Alorza, I know him. I helped him. I met him at the Rhode Island Foundation. He was a member. He asked me for my help, and I gave my help. He's a Democrat, and the city is about 45% Latino now. There's no really Irish vote anymore in Providence. There's pockets. There's little pockets, Smith Hill, Mount Pleasant, but that's a little bit on the east side, but not like it used to be. There was 100 years of Irish mayors, Irish American mayors in Providence. That's gone. Right. And then you had like 30 years of Italo-American mayors between Cianci, Paolino, Cicilline. And I think now you're going to see a Latino. They have the votes.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Murphy. Two questions on Rhode Island politics. As a Democrat myself, I agree with majority of what you're saying. I vote in Florida, and that's where I'm living right now for the time being. We see the Democrats in Florida are in shambles, and the Republicans are thriving, as you know, for probably the time being. What is going on with the Republican Party? I talked to Lincoln Chafee on my podcast earlier, Governor Chafee, and he said his dad would be ashamed of the Republican Party, not just in Rhode Island, but more so in the federal.
More so nationally. So listen,
in Rhode Island.
What can I say about John Chafee? I can say he was in Iwo Jima in the Marines in the Second World War, like your grandfather was.
Right.
He was in Iwo Jima, and he was at Guadalcanal, and he went back as in the reserves, and he went to Korea. Right. So he's been in 3 battles, this guy. So I mean, he gets the veterans look and respect that. I'm a veteran. I respect his credentials. They have to. He was a terrific guy. He was a moderate Republican.
But we don't see any Republicans. I mean, Fungs ran twice. He got slaughtered twice. And we don't see any Republicans standing up at all. And like I said, I'm not a Republican.
They're not a strong party. Yeah. And, definitely, the weekend, when you don't have Chafee up there, you had DeSimone up there. He was a strong candidate. He would draw Italo-American votes.
But even DeLillo, he was running for Senate, and that was never going to happen. He had not enough name recognition. But I don't know what's going to happen to him in general, but there's no Republicans in general. So it seems like I'm more of a guy, like I said, I'm a Democrat, but I do like competition, but it seems like the Republicans are dead in Rhode Island.
Hey, listen, I'm a supporter of Sheldon Whitehouse. I was with him prior to when he had, when Brown was running against him. I'm a pre-Brown Sheldon supporter. I couldn't, but I think Bob Flanders is a good candidate.
True,
He really is. He was on the Supreme Court. He worked in Central Falls. He's a very bright guy.
Agreed.
But he's a good candidate. But being a Republican didn't help him.
Yeah. Well, it seems even since when Bush got in, and then Chafee ran against Whitehouse. Once Chafee lost that election, ever since then the Republicans really tanked after 2006. That was.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
But to go back into, now there's going to be one congressional seat after the next
I
census in
hope
Rhode
not.
Island. Well, facts are facts, but we see David Cicilline, who's doing a good job, and also Jim Langerman doing a good job. Now, they're both in those 2 congressional seats. If it goes down to 1, what happens there? Do you think they'll face off in a primary? One will drop out? Do you see anything in there?
I hope one will drop out. First of all, I hope they don't eliminate that seat.
Of course,
I
yeah.
know some people that, I know Jim Langerman and I know David Cicilline. I have a long relationship. He went into the House with my brother when my brother was a state rep. And in 1988, he went into the House with my brother. So I've known Jim since 1988. I consider him a personal friend, and I'm a supporter of his. So I hope they don't. I hope Rhode Island maintains, just not for Jim Langerman or for David Cicilline, but for the future of the state. You got 2 voices. 2 votes are better than 1.
Of course, yeah.
So
we definitely need
for the
that in
future of the
House.
state, I really want to see 2 congressional seats, regardless of who's the candidates. I just love to see the seats.
Right. 2 more questions about politics. Rhode Island Democrats, obviously, like you said, Gina Raimondo is term limited. Do you see any upcoming Democrats that when she exits office that may run for governor that look good for the Democratic Party?
Well, I'm sure the general treasurer wants to run. I'm sure the mayor of Providence would like to run. I'm sure here, as I say, Nerona, the attorney general, is definitely, I think, the front runner. But because he didn't have an opponent, no Republican against him, and he does a good job. I mean, he did a great job as U.S. attorney, and I think he's a strong candidate if he decides to run.
Right now, I agree. So let's move on to the Democratic nomination for the national election to go against Donald J. Trump, the president right now.
Well, I'm kind of looking at it politically.
Right.
I kind of think if Biden wins the nomination and he runs, and I think he'd probably only do it for 1 year. I mean, one term. One term.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I think he would be too old. But, I balance in the ticket. I would like to see Biden and the senator from California.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.